Welcome, everyone. This is our Souls Speak. We're in constellation in divine space. We convene with our souls to listen, share, and explore. Our Souls Speak, a podcast where together with our guests, we embody the soulful principles of oneness and sourceness. Welcome to this episode of our Souls Speak. It is my daunting task and incredible honor to introduce our guest today, Dr. DaeEss Pennington-Wasio. It's daunting in that she has, or let me speak to you, that you have achieved, created, and shared with the world so many things. You are a sonic alchemist and conscious evolution guide who supports seekers on the path from the dark night of the ego to the dawn of the soul. A licensed integrative physician, certified psychedelic facilitator, and retreat host. You're also the creator of the Attunement Meditation and the Cornerstone Process for Conscious Evolution, both designed to support holistic healing and spiritual awakening. You're also the founder of Soul Sense Alchemy, a multidimensional collection of perfumes crafted to attune the body and spirit to higher frequencies and well-being. Your mission is to help others embody the frequency of self-love, sovereignty, and conscious evolution, creating a ripple effect in healing and hope around the world. Your soul is a fractal of consciousness, a soul embodied in a human avatar, here to awaken remembrance, catalyze transformation, and midwife liberation through sacred storytelling, alchemical sound, and multidimensional medicine in the form of meditations, music, sense, and retreats. I personally have had the honor to receive your embodiment of divine light, love, wisdom, power, and will. I'll never forget our time together in preparation for my talk to your class at the Omega Institute when you smudged me with sage and you brought in Ram Dass's energy to support that really magical experience of mine. And I'm forever grateful for everything that you've given me. So welcome, DaeEss, to this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gregorio. It's so lovely to be in connection again.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. So how are you creating portals to access points to altered states and higher guidance?
Well, my soul really works through beauty and intention. So everything I create is encoded with vibration, symbolism, and frequency. So whether it's a perfume, a guided meditation, or a song, they're not products, they're portals. And portals to me are invitations into altered states of consciousness. They're spaces where the ego can soften and the deeper self, the soul, can speak clearly. So using rituals and soundscapes and breath work or scent, all of these are keys that really unlock these gateways. So when someone listens to one of my attunement meditations or they anoint themselves with Soul Sense Alchemy perfume, they're stepping into a curated vibrational field, just like what we set here for this conversation. So it's subtle, but if people are open, it can actually shift their awareness instantly. And these portals also help us to access what's already within, our own divine intelligence and higher guidance, ancestral memory. And they really bring this every day. And that's really what I'm most inspired about right now at this phase of my life and my career.
Yeah, you've been recording songs and on frequency. Can you tell us a little bit more about how teaching not just through words, but through sound and frequency is what you're creating right now?
Yes, this is the return to my original language, vibration. Before I spoke in sentences, I sang to the stars. And that's what it feels like now. It feels like coming home to a soul language that lives in tone, in resonance, and in silence between the notes. Words are certainly powerful, but they're limited in form, whereas frequency bypasses the filters. It reaches the nervous system, the subtle body, the unconscious, and that's where transformation really begins. So my soul has always sung through me or through this avatar, but now I'm at a point where I've finally stopped censoring it. I'm letting the music flow as medicine, whether that's mantra infused electronic tracks or dreamy soundscapes for meditation. Each of these pieces really carries a code for remembering. And that's how I transmit now, beyond logic, into the realm of mystery.
And so frequency, just like in our chakras and the life force spins and spirals, right? And and so does our path forward. It's not linear. Can you talk a little bit about how you're teaching those elements in your conscious evolution path?
Sure. Conscious evolution is not a straight staircase to enlightenment. It's a spiral, and it's alive, it's organic and cyclical, just like nature. So we return to familiar themes and wounds, even desires, but we do that with deeper awareness each time. So when we spiral back, it's not because we failed, but it's because it's time to integrate at a new octave. And so the framework that I teach really invites people to stop judging their returns, these return visits to grief or fear or confusion, and instead recognize them as soul nodes. They're these sacred turning points that can offer us new insight. And there are also overlays. There are like patterns, signs, even dreams that can repeat across lifetimes. And when we awaken to those, we really begin to see how our soul has been leaving little breadcrumbs all along for our awakening. And the spiral path is deeply compassionate. It honors the mess and the mystery and the moments of grace that arise when we stop forcing evolution to be linear and start letting it be holy. It's for me, it's been interesting because one of these soul overlays that has become undeniably clear to me is this connection to voice, to performance, and sacred self-expression. For so long, I tucked that part of me away, the singer, the performer. I still used it, but in what I considered were, acceptable ways. But the mystic who could use melody and rhythm as a vessel for soul medicine was hidden. Part of that was because of perfectionism, believing that I needed to sound like other people. Part of it was programming, this old belief that in order to be spiritual, you had to be serene or soft or quiet. But that's not all of who I am. There's this bold, embodied, rebellious goddess in me who's meant to chant, to rap, to wail, to soothe, and to activate, but not just with words, with vibration. So I've come to realize that music isn't separate from my medicine. It is my medicine. So in going through this spiral path, I've finally given myself full permission to stop editing my voice and start expressing my soul. And that's been one of the most liberating initiations of my journey. And I think that's the next level of what I'm offering to my community, is for them to look at their lives in a different way as well.
Yeah, and so by accepting all these parts of yourself, that's your path to self-love, or embodying self-love, right? So could you talk a little bit about well, the Real Self-Love Handbook, or what you've created there, and how that it comes from your soul?
Absolutely. Well, the Real Self-Love Handbook was written way back in 2018, 2019, after one of my mother's clients demanded it. So shout out to Dr. Janet Anthony. My mother was kind of like an oracle. She actually trained in the UK as a nurse and then immigrated to the US and became a doctor. But she was a coach before there were coaches. She spent more time counseling and listening to people, and people would come from far and wide to work with her. And I, as a physician, was kind of more like evidence-based. I wanted to just, do things by the book. But what happened was a lot of that seeped into me, certainly from childhood, but also from working with my mother in my wellness center. And during the time of this wellness center, I had my own awakening to how much I wasn't fully aligned with my truth, with my authentic self. And that was mirrored in my clients. And little by little, I was able to start unpacking it. And that was a very private journey. I wasn't public about the fact that I didn't love myself unconditionally. But over the course of time, my mother had dementia, and I was sharing something on Facebook, and Dr. Anthony reached out and she was like, "You sound like Dr. P. Can I have a session?" And I'm like, no, I don't do that. I'm not like Dr. P. I'm different. And she was like, "No, you need to help me." So we had a few sessions, and then I was like, I just felt out of my depth, because I'm like, that's not who I am. And so I decided I was going to just put it all in a handbook so that she would have all of the keys to how to unpack your programming, your trauma, how to find who you really are at a soul level, and then how to put that in practice so that you could integrate that and build a life that was authentic and true to you. And so that became the Real Self-Love Handbook. I didn't realize it at the time, but my soul was like, yeah, this is part of your journey. You're meant to be sharing your story and this approach to helping people embrace who they really are, to wake up to who they really are. And it can start at a very basic level of just getting out of pain or trauma, all the way up to the highest self-transcendent spiritual awakening. It's also become the Real Self-Love Movement, which is a not-for-profit community organization where I lead a monthly call where we talk about one of the subjects of self-love, resilience, or post-traumatic growth and sovereignty. And then I lead people through a guided meditation. So it's become this community that's got 4,000 people from around the world. I have to say that now I really understand that it was part of my soul's calling, even though I tried to say no originally.
And can you talk a little bit about, at least from my perspective, self-love being that foundation for our sovereignty, and what that means to you?
Sure. Well, for me, self-love is not just about self-care or pampering, which, it's kind of been co-opted by the wellness industry. What I learned in my medical practice, working with people with substance use disorder and eating disorders, was if people didn't have a fundamental base of self-love, or at least self-acceptance, if they didn't believe they were worthy of vitality and success, then quite often they would sabotage or switch addictions. And for me, this was like mind boggling. I mean, I was a young physician and I didn't get it. I was like, we're giving you everything you need in this multidisciplinary arena. And as I started to peel back the layers with some of these clients, I understood that their trauma had so altered their identity that they had become enmeshed or identified with being a victim or a loser or whatever. And so for me, it became obvious that we needed people to be restored to their original factory setting where the divine said, of course you're worthy of love, you're worthy of success, you're worthy just because you exist. And that fundamental base of self-acceptance, just as we are, even with our flaws, even with the mistakes we've made, even with the trauma we've endured, became the cornerstone for healing. And as people could really settle into this belief, sometimes it was hard to believe, but as they settled into it, little by little, they could see that they could reclaim their sense of agency, to start changing their story away from being the victim and quite possibly becoming the hero. And agency is so critical if you want to get rid of these destructive patterns. If you think everything is happening to you or everything is being blamed on everyone out there, you don't have a whole lot of power. But as soon as you reclaim that agency and recognize that whatever happened in the past, I can't change, but from what I do now, moving forward, it's me. It's my responsibility. I am accountable. And that's where we led into sovereignty, where we could say, I am the sovereign. I am the king, the queen, the emperor, the empress of my domain, my body, my space, my relationships. And that sovereignty is what all of us need to reclaim, especially in where our world is right now in 2025. So that's how I distinguish and lead people from self-love to sovereignty.
If we can transition from how you help others doing that to how you yourself are evolving, growing with these qualities, what is motivating your soul path right now?
What is motivating my soul path right now is, I guess it's age, maybe it's wisdom. So I am 54 and I just became an empty nester. My daughter graduated a year ago from high school and is now going off to college. And it was a turning point for me to really look at who am I as a being, not just as a mother, but who am I? Because the role of mother was very, very tied up for me in wounding, to be quite honest. You know, there was a lot of this mother wound that I was uncovering, healing, both from my mother's transition as well as during this parenting journey. And with recognizing that I didn't have to keep being that same version of mother, which I'm not proud to say, I was actually a quite codependent mother. I tried to give everything that my parents didn't give, and I swung that pendulum a little too far. And so another one of these soul patterns or overlays that was revealed was this mother wound. And that wounding ultimately became one of the deepest healing initiations of my life that I've been on now for a year. And it's given me this opportunity to really evolve and to look at, why did I become a doctor? Why did I become a therapist? Why did I say yes to Dr. Anthony and publish this book? Like, I carried a lot of this programming that said, if people are suffering, it's up to me to fix it. If something is wrong, it's my fault. Okay, a lot of wounded healers carry these sorts of messages. But I think with my daughter's graduation, I had this moment of reckoning where I said, I don't want to carry that into the next 50 years of my life. And it really allowed me to start thinking, well, who do I want to be? And I've tried to peel off certain layers, thinking, okay, well, maybe I was never meant to be a doctor. I just followed in my mom's footsteps. Maybe I was really meant to be a performer. And little by little, I've seen that it's all a part of me. The actor, the performer, the creator, the spiritual woo-woo person, the healer, like all of this is a part of who I am. And especially, I think the other piece of this, bringing this synthesis together, is recognizing my neurodivergence. Like I didn't even get diagnosed with being somewhere on this ADD spectrum until my 50s. And it helped me unpack and recognize there were parts of me that were compartmentalized. Like I talk about the singer part that was put over there in a box. But there are all these other neurodivergent qualities that I wasn't embracing. I labeled them as faults and flaws. And now I've come to a recognition that all of this is part of me. And I'm not actually meant to be in one frickin' box. Everyone all my life has tried to put me in one lane. When I was a singer in high school and at university, producers would look at me and say like, oh yeah, your vibe is kind of like insert famous singer here. And then they try to get me to sing or write songs in that style. And I'm like, no. I sing soul and jazz. And then they'd say, but you're too young to be a jazz singer. You're too young to be a soul singer. And then I got into medical school. And in my third year of med school, I was introduced to acupuncture. And once I graduated and I was incorporating acupuncture and Chinese medicine, people were like, whoa, wait, what are you? Like, are you an acupuncturist? Are you Chinese medicine? What are you? They wanted me to fit in one box. And so I've become this chameleon where it's like, okay, hide that. What does this group need me to be as? Okay, fit in this box. Then I got recruited by Discovery Channel, became the medical director, hosting the news and documentaries. Okay, they wanted me in this box, fit myself into that box. And it was soul shattering. But ultimately, over the last several years, I now recognize that all of me is exactly how I'm supposed to be. The weird, the woo, the creative, the scattered, sometimes hyper-focused. And I am meant to bring all of me out, whether that's in private one-on-ones or in retreats or on the internet. And there are going to be people that resonate with certain things, but all of it is cohesively meant to help people awaken to who they really are, to the same sort of soul fundamentals that I have experienced in different ways. So that was a really long answer to your question, but that's where I am today.
So, thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm curious as to what you think we really are.
Well, you know my story. In 2005, at a very, very dark point in my life, I wanted to be off of this planet. And I called out to the divine to take my life. And I had an out-of-body experience where I was pulled into this white light and really thought God was finally answering my prayer. I got through this tunnel to the other side, saw a complete life review in a split second, and I understood that it was all the choices since birth that led me to be so depressed and full of anxiety, wanting to end my life. And there was this presence next to me that I understood was explaining, like, you have choice. And I know that might sound revolutionary to no one here, but I was like, oh, you mean I could choose differently? And as soon as I said, okay, I'll choose differently, I saw this vision. First, there was this big ball of like sun, lava. And there were these little droplets of this light dripping down to the earth. And as this little light, this golden drop of consciousness incarnated into a human avatar, I understood that it's up to us to determine who we will be. Not our religion, not our family, not the media, not our peers. And with that understanding, I was like, okay, I can go back. I then saw this vision for my future, which we can get into maybe another time, but I really now fully believe and fully feel that that is what and who we are. We are consciousness. We are a little fractal, a little piece of that consciousness that has individuated or incarnated into a human avatar. Yes, we probably carry some soul imprints, some karmic residue from past lives that influences what we might experience in this 3D version of reality. But each of us is on a journey of awakening. We're each little soul's essence, God consciousness, whatever you want to call it, on this planetary mission to wake up and to become who we really are.
I think that's a perfect segue into the.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
So incredible to hear you speak. I'd love to know how you see the relationship or the relating between the sovereign aspect of source that we uniquely are and all the other sparks aspects of source, and this play between individualization, which isn't really individualization, and constellation, which is us coming together, and how you maybe navigate that now, being fully sovereign and being in relationship and relating to other beings.
And when you say these other sparks, do you mean like other individuated
Yeah.
pieces of consciousness?
Yeah, everybody else that you come into contact with, we come in contact with.
Well, I see that I think the way I could describe it is it's a divine play. And we're each on our own trajectory of awakening. And so when we can come into our sense of sovereignty, even if I'm in relationship with someone who isn't fully there with that awareness and really owning that this is their life, I can still recognize that that's just part of this gameplay. If we think of this as a virtual reality, that, you know, we've incarnated and our avatar is at a different level of awakening, but I know that the consciousness in each of us is already awake and sovereign. And so I can treat other people with compassion, with tenderness, with reverence, knowing that at some point you're going to pop too, you're going to wake up too. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, beautifully. Yeah, thank you so much. It's something that I feel like there's never refining clarity around us as unique expressions and us all as in this multifaceted dimension. The second question I'd really love to hear you speak more about, because it really touched me, was around, and I can feel this in relation to judgment arising within myself, around these patterns that repeat themselves and the messiness of that, and the potential attachment to a spiritual life being all blissful and calm and transcendent, which certainly isn't my experience, and frustration arising around, well, I thought we'd been here before, but not only are we back, but we're back even stronger, and how that can drop into, yeah, the self-criticism and everything you're saying around the self-love, actually. So I'd love you to speak to that experience, which you've spoken about so passionately, but also generally in relation to people you work with.
That's a great question. I find that most people, myself included, grow up thinking that there is this linear progression that we're going to go through. We're going to follow the steps, follow the rules, get the degrees, get the things, the stuff, the kids, the whatever. We're going to arrive, and it's somewhat linear. And I don't know, eventually you start to realize it's messy. It's not linear. We sometimes take 2 steps forward and then feel like we're going 5 steps backward. And one of the things that I rely on in my work is something that we innately have as human avatars. We have the ability to recognize patterns. So I invite people to start mapping their soul nodes and overlays. So I used to have people just do a linear timeline of life events. And now I say, let's pick a theme. So you mentioned like you're coming back to a theme and you're like, oh man, I thought I grew through this. I thought I healed this. And yet it's coming up again, maybe even stronger. Like for me, I had that and I felt bad about myself. I mean, my inner critic would just go off until I realized it's almost like when we go to kindergarten and we're starting to learn our ABCs, just because you learn the alphabet doesn't mean you're done. It's like, then you get to the next level. And then your next challenge is putting those letters together to make words and then being able to read them and then eventually sentences. And so every time you get to another level in school, you still come back to English or any other language you're learning, but now it gets more complex. And so you're still going to be tested because that's how schools are typically set up, unless you're in Montessori. But the school of life that we're living in this 3D reality, there are going to be tests. And it's not to shame us or to break us down. It's to give us a sense of mastery so that then we can say, what do I want to do with this mastery? Just like when you get a degree, what do I want to do with this degree? I want to apply it. And so as soon as I start helping people look at the pattern in your life to see, are these things that you're coming back to? Is it true that you're regressing? Or is it that you're at another level and now you get to reevaluate this issue with higher awareness and most importantly, with consciousness about how you want to move forward? Because for most of us, those soul nodes, those returning or recurring patterns are generally tied to our past programming. So when we look back and say, oh, okay, I had this low self-esteem because of how my father raised me. And even though I've improved in some area, it comes back in another. Oh, this is just inviting me to look consciously, not like how I used to just do things out of obedience and compulsion. And I think that's the most important thing, is when we can recognize the patterns and see that it operates in the spiral. Hopefully you can feed that back into your inner critic to say, oh, now we have new information. I don't need you to be judging me and beating me down based on the past. Let's look at this now and move forward. So I really believe in a compassionate approach to working with all of these parts of us. And the biggest thing is about education, becoming aware of the programming and how it impacts us and what life really is. And the last thing I'll say is like reading biographies of other spiritual people, yogis or Gandhi or anyone else. You realize these quote unquote enlightened beings didn't have a straight linear path to enlightenment. So why would we expect that we should have that?
Yeah, thank you so much. There's so much here and so much in what you've expressed.
Can I ask a question about, you mentioned earlier that you do attunement meditation. Could you explore that a bit more and describe that to us?
Absolutely. In my medical practice, I mentioned that I brought in acupuncture for drug and alcohol detox and eating disorders. So what we would do is have people come into a group room. We'd put in their acupuncture, and then I'd lead them in a guided meditation to help them tune into calm before they went into their either individual therapy or group sessions. And these were people who were not meditators. So some of them were very resistant, but over time they came to recognize that it helped to calm the body and the brain and helped to give them a little more presence to explore their emotional issues without all of the emotional attachment. And one of them said, like, can you come home with me? I'm like, no. And I said, but I can teach you how to do exactly what we've done. And it became this 5-step mindfulness meditation that brings harmony to body and brain. And it also synchronizes brain waves, taking us out of busy beta into alpha and theta, and maybe even gamma. So the 5 steps start off with taking deep breaths, and we allow ourselves to just tune into whatever is present in the body and mind. This is helping people to become that non-judgmental witness. So we literally say, like, just observe what's here without trying to shame it, change it, curse it, or anything. And then we attune in step 2, attune to loving kindness. And here's where we might do the 4 phrases of metta, the loving kindness meditation, or invite in a compassion figure. If we can't imagine sending that to ourselves, we imagine that another being could hold that for us. The 3rd step is align, where we align our mind with a higher state of consciousness, which means we can invite in wisdom, even a wisdom figure, a sage, our own personal Yoda, or ancestors, higher self. And we just invite in wisdom that may come during the meditation or it may come later. The 4th step is inspired action, where we really, with that open heart and open mind, we ask, what would be the next right step on my path? Not the busy, compulsive doing, but truly inspired action. And then the 5th step is appreciation, where we tune into gratitude, gratitude for ourselves, any parts that have shown up, our body, any of the ancestors, guides, or compassion figures that have come. And all of it's based, because I was a nerd in perfectionism, each step is really based in neuroscience and positive psychology. So it's stuff that's going to really anchor into creating a neuroplasticity and positive change.
It sounds incredible, because I think you're mixing the logical mind, the left brain, and the right hemisphere, which is the emotional body. And having experienced acupuncture myself, I know that with acupuncture, it opens up and it allows you, if you're open to it, to just totally relax. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit more about vibration, symbolism, and frequency? As you mentioned, you've probably covered a few things there in the previous explanation, but
yeah, this really touches on the concept of us living in a vibrational universe. Everything is energy, and everything is always vibrating. And so when we think about frequency, we're thinking about how many oscillations per second of, say, a sound wave, for example, or even light waves. When we're thinking about the frequency that those waves are either hitting our eardrum or our retina, those frequencies actually create changes in the brain. So if we take sound, for example, sound can bypass the rational brain and automatically start to synchronize our brain waves. So a drum beat, for example, can get us into a coherent state, but also humming. So we can take control. We can hum and activate the vagus nerve, which will send a signal that shifts us out of survival into safety and regulation. So when we start thinking about sound and frequency and vibration, it's an invitation to think about the things in our environment that we might be able to tune into that can help us shift our consciousness. So scent is another thing that can really strike a chord within us. Scent also bypasses the logical thinking mind. It goes straight to the amygdala, this emotional relay center, and it can set up a different frequency or a vibration within us. Just thinking of the scent of a rose or lavender or something that you don't like so much, how that can affect your physiology. So these are some of the things that I'm really excited to be helping people to tune into, because these are things that most of us have. Whether you buy one of my perfumes or use scents in your own garden, you can start to harness the power of nature to impact your nervous system and your heart and soul.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking so clearly from your soul. And my question is really about the next step of the soul's spiral path. And although we use slightly different language, I speak about, and one speaks about in one's work, points of realization, which feel energetically and in all ways the same as the nodes that you were speaking about. And I just wonder if you've noticed if there's any difference in the experience of traveling the spiral and through the nodes as you've progressed within your soul's path.
The difference I've noticed for myself is I don't get derailed as much. As a younger person, as a less healed person, I've talked about that inner critic. I would think if something was wrong, I'm wrong. I've done something wrong. I didn't get it right. I need to do better. And now I can recognize that sometimes things will feel unstable because I'm about to level up. If I've just come through a portal of initiation, of course, that next level is not going to feel completely stable and familiar. And so now I'm quicker to say, to just name it, like with the attunement meditation, just name what is here without judging it. And then I can recognize, okay, something is shifting here. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It just means I'm evolving. I'm stepping into this next octave. So that for me is what I see in my own life and journey.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really interesting to me at the moment in my journey about how there's a very strong vibrational play between presence and sovereignty and radiance. In terms of the guidance lately, which I experience as very specific, it's to exist as radiance, to exist as sovereignty, to exist as presence. That seems to be a different, if one senses, as we all do, the bandwidths of vibration and the bandwidths of energy, or we see it, the energy, depending on our subtle sensing. It seems to be different. It seems that there's a shift in the bandwidth. I sense it, I see it, I feel it. And I just wonder if there's if that's been your experience as you've progressed, as you say, through your initiations, which is a totally familiar concept to me. So I just wanted to just ask how you were experiencing that, how you would give voice to that experience.
I love that you bring this in. I can share how it's come up for me lately. This idea that you share, the guidance that's been coming for you has been also coming for me. It's been coming for years and I wasn't ready for it. But last year, when I had more of this awakening and this realization that I'm right as opposed to wrong, just as I am, all my weirdness. And I understood in this sort of awakening process that all I need to do is just show up and be in my sovereignty. My presence enough is enough. Now that was tough for the old perfectionist that believed in there are things that we do, there are protocols, But it was a feeling. So when you talk about, you said an opening of bandwidth, I had this feeling, this expansion that I was able to try on. I said, okay, what does that mean? If my presence is enough, if I can truly follow my intuition, which means if this person needs a song, I give them a song. If this person needs education, I teach. It's just show up as me. I already have a vast storehouse of stuff and just be that frequency. And that's enough. So I'll tell you how this showed up just 4 weeks ago. I'm having all of these realizations. And the part of me that wants to like have a plan and stick to it was like, what do I do now? And I was like, well, you just sit there and we'll see what happens. So I get to the Netherlands to facilitate or co-facilitate a sacred ceremony, a retreat with 2 ceremonies with another facilitator that I've worked with before. And I came in very honest. I said, listen, I'm going through something where I've been just called to just be here as a sort of oracle. That term was kind of scary to me, but I shared it with her. And I said, so we're going to just co-create based on what the energy needs. We still have a schedule because certain things need to happen. But it was amazing because for the first time, I went into ceremony, and rather than already thinking, we need to play this song and do this and do that and check this, I was just like in the flow. And when things came up, like I literally, Gregorio, you'll laugh at this one. I literally heard a voice inside that said, sing. And I'm like, but it's not my turn. There's someone else singing. Like she usually does things first. And it was like, oh, I need to honor this. And I did. I stood up and I sang. And we had the most amazing 5 days. And it was completely unlike anything we've ever done before. My other facilitator and I bonded and connected in a way we've never before. And the results from these people were just mind-blowing. And the way that fed back to me was, yes, I can trust this. I can trust that all the work I've done, I'm at a stage where I can trust and I can just be.
That that resonates with me so much with what I'm experiencing right now too, and it's yeah, it's kind of like what you and I have talked about, the surrendering to spirit. And yes, we have all these tools, and just be open to how spirit wants it to move.
That's it
Source,
exactly.
you know,
Source, spirit, the divine. And it's about really, for me, becoming that vessel, that instrument. You know,
yeah,
we may recite these prayers about becoming an instrument of peace or of the divine. And as a musician, I'm like, okay, so play through me or speak through me or dance through me.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I hear the divine wills us to allow our collective constellation, as we are in the channel, to feel and sense and see or hear into what is here and radiate that.
Yeah,
That's what seems to be here right now. So
I'm hearing that as
shall
well.
we just, shall we take some time in silence? Thank you. Thank you all.
Mhm.
A lot of beautiful singing and dancing going on there. It's very, very beautiful experience. Thank you.
Thank you. It's such a joy to connect with you all and to be in this sacred space. Really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Much love to everybody.
Yeah, such a blessing.
Thank you, guys.
Sending blessings to you from France.
Mm,
Thank you.
Lots of love.
it's love.
To receive more information about our guests and future events, please visit our website at sourceness.one. We are one.